Hey everyone, this is Larry with Today I Feel Like. Today I'm going to show you how to update the firmware on your Canon R5. I was out a couple weeks ago and I was shooting a football game. And, well, my camera overheated. So I need to go ahead and get this firmware updated. Yeah, it's never been updated. I've had it for 2 years. Let's go ahead and get this firmware updated and let me show you how to do it. All right, I have my camera here, so let me show you where you need to go first and foremost. So the first thing you want to do is just make sure that you go over to where your firmware version is. So if you are in your menus right here at the first menu where it says cameras, just go ahead and scroll all the way over to the little wrench icon. And then we want to go to page 6 of this one here so that we can actually get to the firmware version. So we can see right now it says we're on version firmware 1.50, and if you hit the set button, it'll show you both the firmware for your camera and your lens. So in this video, we're just going to update the firmware for our camera. So the next thing we need to do is actually go to the Canon website and download the current firmware version. So let's go ahead and take care of that now. Okay, let's go ahead and jump onto the computer right quick so I can show you where to go get your software download. We just want to go to this site here, which is canonusa.com. So we'll click that. Once we're over here on the Canon usa.canon website, we're going to go over here to where it says support and click support. We're going to scroll down now and you'll see it says, which type of product do you have? We're going to go ahead and select cameras. And now we're going to go ahead and select EOS digital cameras. Now I'm going to go ahead and click down here where it says load more. And I'm going to search for the R5. Now here is the R5 tab right there. Now I can tell you this, for some reason, I don't know why, but today, as I'm trying to film this video, as I'm sure other content creators know, the moment you try and film a video, that's when everything goes wrong. And today's no different. So I was trying to download the R5 software, and for some reason, when I click on it, it just will not open. It will not give me the option to download the R5 software. So I'm going to show you the rest of this as if I'm downloading the R6 software. The process is the same. You just need to make sure you come back at a later date if your R5 download is not working so that you can actually get it. I already downloaded it yesterday, so I'm going to go ahead and show you the process of getting it, and then I'm going to go through the installation just with the firmware I downloaded yesterday instead of today. All right, I know that was a long explanation. Let's get back into it. All right, so if you're on the R5, you click the R5 right there, and you see right here where it says software and drivers. You want to click that, and this is where normally you'll have it pop down here where you'll see some other information, but because it's not working, I'm going to come back over here, go back into cameras, and go back to EOS digital cameras. And I'm just going to show you here from the R6. So let me click on R6. And there we have it. I'll click software and drivers. And you'll see down here now it's going to show you software and drivers. And it's going to show you detected, your operating system detected, and the version of your operating system. So I'm on the latest, which is Mac OS Sonoma version 14. I'm going to click that right there. You'll see here you're going to have the various versions. You can click agree and then click the download button, and this will then ask you where you want to save it, and you just go ahead and download this. Now this looks like it's for Windows. I actually need it for Mac, so I'm going to go ahead and close that out, and here it is for Mac right there. I'm going to go ahead and click agree, get rid of that, and then I'll click download, and this is going to download the Mac version right there. So all right, now that we have this downloaded, let's go ahead and let me show you how to get it installed on your camera. Now, once you have the software downloaded, what you want to do is just grab yourself a memory card. So I just have a little small 16 gig memory card here, and we're going to move the firmware onto the root of this memory card. So let me show you what it looks like. All right, I'm putting the memory card in there, and it should pop up. There it is right there. So we have it popped up here. And so I have this folder right here called Canon R5 firmware. And that is where I have the R5 firmware. Now you can see there it is, because I'm on a Mac, it's saved as a .dmg. I'm just going to go ahead and click that to open it up, and we'll go ahead. We'll click. We'll grab that. We'll click that. That is our firmware right there, and our update procedures. I'm just going to highlight. I'm just going to highlight both of these and move them into the R5 firmware folder there. So there we have it. So now we'll see here we have PDFs in multiple languages showing us how to do the firmware update. And this file right here is the firmware update. So I'm going to go ahead now and click the memory card right there. And this is, you can see there's nothing in it. There's no folders. And this is going to be the root of the memory card. So I'm just going to drag this, copy this right over there onto the memory card. And just like that. And now I'm going to go ahead and put this into the camera and get this updated. Okay, so now that we have the firmware on the memory card, let's go ahead and pop it in the camera and then get the firmware updated. So we're just going to go ahead and pop this right on in the camera there. There we go. We'll make sure that it's on. We want to go into menu. Make sure that we're back here on the little wrench icon, and then make sure you're on page 6 where you can see the firmware. And once you're on the firmware version there, just hit set, and then make sure it's on the camera firmware. We're going to click set again, and then you'll see it says current firmware version is version 1.50 update firmware. We're going to click OK, and it's going to then maybe take a second for it to load the firmware up, but it should get there in just a moment. There we go. We can see it says firmware update program loading, so we'll wait for that to go ahead and finish up. And there we go. We can see it says firmware update program. Please select a new firmware version. Current firmware version is 1.50, and then it has EOS version 1.90. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And it's going to say firmware update is going to go from 1.50 to 1.90. So I'm going to go ahead and select OK and hit set. And then it says updating now. It says warning, do not turn off the power switch or touch any buttons. So you want to make sure that you do exactly that. Do not turn off your camera while it's in the process of updating. Don't push any buttons while it's in the process of updating. Just let it update. Now also, if I didn't mention this before you actually start this firmware update process in camera, make sure that you have a full battery in your camera because you don't want to lose power mid-process. So make sure you have a full battery when you start this update, or if you use an AC unit in here, an AC adapter, make sure you have your AC adapter plugged in so that you don't lose power while you're doing your update. All right, we're just going to wait for it to go through its process, and then we'll see what happens when it's done. All right, well, it looks like it's gone through that first part of it. It's asking now to click OK, so I'm going to go ahead and hit set right there. And it's going to then start finishing up. And I think it might actually be done right now. So let's go ahead. We'll click on where it says menu. And there we go. We can see right now as we go back into the firmware version, we can see it's at firmware 1.90. And if we click there where it says camera firmware, it says firmware version 1.90. And if we click that, we're not going to need to update. If we click OK, it's going to come in here and it's going to then show the firmware update program loading again. And we're going to see there it says current firmware version is the same as the firmware version that is on the memory card that we have in the root there. So we're going to go ahead and just click cancel to get out of that. And that's it. That's how you can update the firmware on your Canon R5 or your R6 or really any of the R series cameras. It's pretty easy, pretty simple. Right now, for whatever reason, at least today as I'm making this video, there was some issue with me downloading the R5 firmware, but I downloaded it earlier. So again, when I showed you the example, I showed you with the R6 firmware, but it's the exact same process. All right, everyone. Well, there you go. That is it. That is how you can update the firmware on your Canon R5. This also works for the R6, but it's very, very easy to do. There's one last thing I would recommend, though, is after you finish your update, just take the memory card out of there that has the firmware update on there. Just take it out. Don't leave it in your camera. If it's a memory card that you normally use in your camera, just make sure you go in and initialize the memory card before you start using it again. So technically, you should initialize this in camera before you even load the firmware on there. But if you didn't and it works fine, don't worry about it. But if you have any errors or anything while trying to actually update the firmware, just make sure you take the memory card, put in your camera, format the card, and then go ahead, pull it out, and then once it's been initialized, pull it out, put it in your computer, and save the software onto this card, the firmware update onto this card before you put it back into the camera. So just make sure you initialize it before and after. That's basically what I'm trying to say. So there you go. All right, I'll leave links to everything down below in the video description so that you can check it out and download your firmware and get your camera updated. I'll also leave links to my social media and my contacts and Amazon and everything else down below so you can reach out if you're interested and see other products and services that I've reviewed over time. And I hope you enjoyed seeing this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up and please subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram. And I am Larry with Today I Feel Like. Thanks for coming back to see me. Come back and see me soon. And until next time, love, peace, and hair grease. Peace.